Hello. It's time for us to set aside the worries of a long day, to let our minds be at ease, and to embark on a distant journey together. Find a position that is truly comfortable for you. Take a deep breath in and exhale slowly. In the quiet space of this night, I am knowledge before sleep, and I will join you in looking up at the vast sky, where a faithful companion has been by Earth's side since the dawn of time. That is, the moon. We grew up with the idea that the moon was just a lifeless rock, a silent place where nothing ever happened. In old textbooks, it appeared as a dusty, barren, and boring desert, a gray orb that only reflected light from the sun and quietly followed us through each dark night. But did you know that tranquility is actually a complete lie? We have been deceived by that calm exterior, because beneath that fine layer of dust, the moon is behaving so strangely that it makes even the most brilliant scientists scratch their heads in amazement. In reality, the moon is not resting at all. It is a dynamic world, still evolving and changing in ways we are only just beginning to scratch the surface of. Like an old neighbor we thought we knew so well, only to one day realize they were hiding a whole secret world behind their closed door. The moon is awakening from a slumber that has lasted for billions of years. It is sending out signals, vibrations, and even changes to its appearance that are forcing us to completely rethink our view of the universe. In the moments to come, we will explore mysteries that have never been revealed. We will hear about how the moon is shrinking like a raisin, about moonquakes that last for hours, causing the entire sphere to ring like a giant bell. We will also learn about the paradox of the vibrant red rust spreading across its airless surface, and about a metallic mass weighing quadrillions of kilograms buried deep beneath the ground. All of these crazy and wonderful things will be told in the gentlest way to guide you into a peaceful sleep, where your dreams will soar among the stars. Just let my voice lead you, because tonight we will realize that even the most familiar object in the sky can leave us wide-eyed with its marvels. Now, close your eyes and let us begin the first chapter of the story of the moon, a world that never stands still. In the quiet darkness, as all the sounds of daily life begin to fade, try to cast your gaze out the window, where the silvery moonlight gently drapes everything in a dreamlike veil. Seen from afar, the moon appears as a gray orb, silent and motionless, as if it has been asleep since the dawn of time. Perhaps since we were children, we've been told that the moon is a dead rock, a place where silence is the only thing that reigns, and no movement could ever break that stillness. However, I want to tell you something. The piece you are seeing is actually a perfect cover, an artful lie of the universe. We have been deceived by the distance of hundreds of thousands of kilometers, or at least we have never had a precise idea of what is truly happening behind that gray curtain. The reality is, the moon is not dead, nor is it resting as we have always thought. Right at this moment, as you are sinking into relaxation on that distant celestial body, things are unfolding in a way that is incredibly intense and mysterious. The moon is behaving so strangely that it causes scientists to scratch their heads, unable to understand what is really going on. It is not the boring desert depicted in old textbooks. On the contrary, it is a world that is doing things that, according to all conventional rules, it shouldn't be doing. Imagine, one day you suddenly realize that the lifeless rock you see every night has a life of its own, a silent but powerful existence. It moves, it changes its appearance, and it hides secrets that we humans are only just beginning to receive. The latest discoveries are shattering everything we once held to be true about the universe. The moon is not merely a satellite that quietly follows the Earth everywhere, but it's more like a giant jigsaw puzzle being reassembled, where the newly found pieces do not fit with what we expected at all. Beneath the fine and cold lunar dust, Something is slowly awakening after a slumber of billions of years. For many decades, the scientific community firmly believed that the moon was like an engine that had run out of fuel long ago. They told us that, geologically, it no longer had a pulse, that it was just an inert object floating in the vastness of space, with nothing more interesting to do than reflect sunlight. However, the game has completely changed now that we have begun to observe things at a much closer range with the help of the most advanced technologies. Thanks to recent exploratory missions, notably NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, and by re-examining the precious data brought back by the Apollo astronauts decades ago with modern tools, we have been stunned to realize we were completely wrong. Our only satellite is changing every day. It is moving and concealing things that would astonish anyone. The core idea that modern science is now leaning towards is this: the moon is not a cosmic fossil frozen in time, but a dynamic celestial body, still evolving in ways that human intellect cannot yet fully comprehend. We are gradually discovering that, deep within its rocky heart, there is an internal activity that, according to previous theories, should not exist. The structure of the moon is undergoing profound changes, and phenomena are appearing that simply have no logical explanation based on old knowledge. This feeling is like suddenly rediscovering an old neighbor who has lived next to you for a long time, only to realize you know nothing about them. You are shocked to find that they have a whole secret world going on quietly behind their closed doors. Everything we thought we understood about the formation and workings of the moon is now under a giant question mark. That companion is sending us signals, as if to say it still has many more stories to tell, and we are only just touching the outer layer of the real mysteries. What we are about to discover will forever change the way you look at the night sky, causing your mind to open up to things never seen before. To begin to understand the strange things that are happening, first, join me in letting go of the idea that the moon is a perfect, solid sphere that will never change. The reality is much stranger, and if you look at it deeply, it even carries a slightly concerning tone. One of the biggest secrets we have just discovered is this: our moon is shrinking. This is not a metaphor or an exaggeration, but a real physical transformation that is happening right now. The moon is gradually contracting, like a creature trying to withdraw into the shadows. And this shrinking is the beginning of a chain of other fascinating and mysterious geological phenomena that we will explore together in the next chapters of this journey. But before we delve into those details, let your mind relax, feel the silent vibrations of the universe, and believe that every single speck of dust on the moon carries an untold story. Our journey has only just begun, and the moon is waiting to tell you about the wrinkles of time, about the strange echoes in its rocky heart, and about the very breath of the earth touching its surface. For now, just let your curiosity gently guide you into sleep, because the greatest mysteries often reveal themselves only when we are ready to listen with our whole soul. In the absolute silence of space, a quiet transformation is taking place that we would never notice with the naked eye. Imagine yourself standing in a vast field under the moonlight, feeling the gentle breath of the night. While we are seeking peace, our companion, up high the moon, is undergoing an astonishing process of change. One of the strangest truths recently confirmed by modern science is this: our moon is actually getting smaller. It sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? How can a giant celestial body, a solid rock sphere that has existed for billions of years, shrink? But this is not a science fiction hypothesis or an exaggeration. Physically, precise measurements have shown that the moon's diameter has decreased by about 50 meters over the last few 100 million years. I know, 50 meters, for a celestial body thousands of kilometers wide, might seem trivial, like a single grain of sand in a desert. However, from the perspective of planetary geology, this is a change of epic proportions, signaling violent changes deep within its core. To help you visualize it better, imagine waking up one morning and realizing your favorite pair of pants suddenly won't button. But the strange thing is, it's not because you've gained weight, but because the fabric of the pants itself shrank overnight. The moon is going through something similar, with its own crust. So, why has this giant decided to shrink? All answers lead back to a single source: heat. Think of the moon like a steaming cup of coffee that someone accidentally left on a table on a breezy afternoon. At first, that coffee is full of energy, radiating warmth. But over time, that heat gradually escapes into the cold air of the room. The moon is the same. Deep inside its core, there's still some leftover heat from its distant formation billions of years ago. But that energy is slowly cooling as it comes into contact with the bone-chilling cold of space. And this is where the basic laws of physics we once learned come into play. When things cool down, they tend to contract, becoming denser and taking up less space. The moon's core and mantle are gradually compressing as they lose their internal heat. However, there's a small but critically important detail. The moon's outer crust is a solid, rigid layer of rock. As the inside shrinks, that sturdy crust has nowhere to go, forcing it to adjust itself to wrap around a core that is getting smaller and smaller. For the clearest picture, think of a fresh, plump grape. When the grape is new, its skin is taut and smooth because it's full of water, but if you leave that grape out in the sun, the water inside evaporates, the grape shrivels up and turns into a raisin. The grape's already formed skin will then develop wrinkles. It folds in on itself and cracks because the pulp inside has gotten significantly smaller. Our moon is essentially becoming a giant cosmic raisin just like that. This shrinking process has created enormous fault cliffs that scientists call lobate scarps. They are essentially giant wrinkles, stone ledges dozens of meters high and extending for miles across the moon's gray surface. What truly astonishes us is that these wrinkles aren't old at all. They aren't frozen scars from millions of years ago. Thanks to the super powerful cameras on NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, or LRO, we've noticed that these faults still look very new and sharp. This means the moon is wrinkling right now, at the very moment you are listening to these words. It's a living, ongoing process. The ground is cracking, and rock is being pushed up over other rock because there's no longer enough room for them to lie flat as they once did. This is a relentless struggle of matter, adapting to a body that is continuously shrinking. If you could stand on the edge of one of these cliffs, you would see a spectacular scene that challenges the very idea of the moon's tranquility. You'd see boulders the size of buildings being thrust upward, breaking through the gray dust that covers the surface. And this transformation doesn't happen in silence. Every time the crust becomes too stressed, the rock suddenly buckles, creating tremors that spread across the planet. It's as if the moon is groaning, creaking under the pressure of its own cooling process. This global contraction is the clearest evidence that our neighbor is not a dead fossil. It has its own form of geological metabolism, which, while slow, is incredibly persistent. The moon is changing right before our eyes, reminding us that in the vast universe, nothing stays static forever. Now, as the image of a moon quietly shrinking to hold onto its last bit of warmth forms in your mind, let yourself sink deeper into relaxation. The wrinkles of time and the creaks of stone will be part of the long story we will continue to explore. Sleep well, and perhaps in your dreams, you'll find yourself strolling along the brand new cliffs of a world in constant transformation. As night falls and the world around you grows quiet, we continue our journey to find the secrets hidden on the distant moon. In the last chapter, we learned that the moon is shrinking like a dehydrating raisin. But have you ever wondered what traces that shrinking process has left on its gray surface? These marks are not just impact craters from meteorites, but true wrinkles of time, evidence of an entity that is still constantly changing. Scientists call these structures by the rather dry-sounding name of fault scarps or lobate scarps. But let me describe them to you in a way that's easier to picture. They are basically giant wrinkles rising up from the surface. They aren't like the majestic mountains on Earth, formed by the collision of tectonic plates, but more like enormous terraces, cliffs that can be dozens of meters high and stretch for miles across the dusty plains. What truly sent shockwaves through the astronomical community was the age of these wrinkles. For a long time, we mistakenly believed that all the cracks on the moon were ancient scars from millions of years ago, frozen and motionless in time. However, thanks to the divine eyes of the super-powerful cameras on NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, we've realized a completely different truth. These faults look very new. They are astonishingly sharp. You won't find any small impact craters on top of them, which would normally happen if a geological feature had been around for a very long time. What does this mean? It means our moon is wrinkling right now, at this very moment, as you lie here relaxing and listening to this story. It is an active, ongoing process. The ground beneath that gray dust is cracking, and one part of the crust is being pushed over another because it no longer fits in the ever-shrinking space. Imagine a rug that's too big for the room. When you try to force it in, it will buckle and form ridges. The moon is experiencing a similar, relentless struggle of rock against itself. If you could stand on the edge of one of these faults, you would witness a scene that challenges any notion of the moon's serenity. You would see boulders the size of entire buildings that have been thrust upward, breaking through the fine dust that scientists call regolith, which covers everything. And remember, this doesn't happen gently or smoothly. Every time the stress on the crust becomes unbearable, the rock fractures and suddenly buckles. That rupture creates a vibration, a tremor that spreads across the ground. It's like a planetary groan, the creaking of an entity straining under the pressure of its own cooling process. This is a completely different picture from what we've always believed about a dead and silent world. At first, experts thought these might just be isolated cases, oddities happening in only a few specific places on the moon. But the truth is far more interesting. These fault lines are everywhere. They are scattered across the entire lunar globe, from the frigid poles to the sun-drenched plains. No matter where you look, the moon is tightening its belt. The discovery of these growing wrinkles is not just an exciting scientific find. It also makes us reflect on the future. If we humans want to return there someday to build long-term bases or homes for astronauts, we will have to be very careful. Surely, no one wants to build their house right on top of a fault line that is actively widening and could shake at any moment. You see, although a period of hundreds of millions of years may seem like an eternity to a person in the life of a celestial body, it's just like the blink of an eye, as if it just happened yesterday. The moon isn't a fossil. It has its own geological pulse, slow but never stopping. Now, as you feel your eyes beginning to close, let the image of these majestic cliffs and mysterious wrinkles dissolve into your dreams. The moon is still up there, changing its face little by little, waiting for us to explore. I wish you a very deep sleep, and we will meet again in the next chapter to hear about the strange echoes that emanate from deep within the rock. As darkness envelops everything and your mind begins to drift into a space of relaxation, join me in listening to a different sound. Not the rustling of the wind or the falling of leaves, but the very pulse of the moon itself. The continuous process of fracturing that we talked about in the previous chapter, the process that is causing our neighbor to become smaller and more wrinkled, does not happen in absolute silence. Although there is no air in space to carry sound the way we hear it on Earth, deep within its rocky interior, all that built-up pressure has to find a way to be released. And that method is through moonquakes. If you ever thought you needed shifting and colliding tectonic plates, like we have on our blue planet, to make the ground shake, the moon is here to shatter that idea. Here on Earth, we're used to the crust being divided into puzzle pieces that float on a molten mantle, creating quakes when they bump into each other. But the moon is essentially just one solid, rigid ball of rock. So, how can such a seemingly dead ball of rock shake so much and so violently? The answer is both fascinating and a little terrifying if you imagine yourself as an astronaut standing on its surface. To understand the scale of the issue, we have to go back in time, more than 50 years, to the legendary Apollo missions. When astronauts set foot there from 1969 to 1972, they didn't just come to take pictures or pick up rock samples. They also left behind some very special equipment. These were seismometers, basically super-sensitive microphones designed to listen to every pulse, every creak from deep within the moon. Those instruments stayed there, working diligently and sending data back to Earth until 1977. And what we heard during those years left scientists wide-eyed with astonishment. It turns out, the moon vibrates far more than anyone could have imagined. These tremors are not gentle or faint. We're talking about quakes that can reach up to a magnitude of 5.5 on the Richter scale. To give you some perspective, a quake of that intensity down here is enough to knock books off your shelves, crack walls, and give anyone a good scare. But on the moon, its effect is exponentially more terrifying for a very specific reason. The moon rings like a giant bell. Why is there such a difference? Here on Earth, we have a lot of water. Water seeps into the pores of rocks, into the soil, and fills our vast oceans. Water acts as a kind of natural dampener. When an earthquake occurs, the vibrations have their energy absorbed and are quickly dispersed by our planet's moist structure. A quake can be very powerful, but it usually only lasts for a few seconds or a few minutes before settling down. But the moon is completely different. It's unbelievably arid, even drier than the harshest deserts at high noon. Its rocks are hard, dense, and contain no moisture to dampen the vibrations, so when a fault line ruptures, the energy just reverberates inside the satellite over and over again. Imagine standing on ground that is shaking violently and without stopping for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or even for more than an hour straight. It's a true geological nightmare, challenging any experience humans have ever had down here. The moon isn't silent. It's groaning under its own pressure. Those echoes are proof of an internal structure that's almost like pure crystal, rigid and extremely efficient at transmitting energy. If you could press your ear to that gray surface, you wouldn't hear the silence of a vacuum, but a continuous hum, an echo of past impacts and present pressures that simply refuse to die down. Now, let your breathing become very light. Imagine yourself floating above that magical sphere of rock, feeling the subtle vibrations transmitting through space. The moon is telling its secret history through these long-lasting quakes. And as you slowly drift off to sleep, remember that even in the most arid of places, there are always unique rhythms waiting to be understood. The story of the moon's inner vibrations isn't a new hypothesis. It began with the very first human footsteps on that gray soil. To truly understand why the moon can shake so powerfully, we need to go back to the period between 1969 and 1972. Those were the years when the Apollo mission astronauts made their legendary journeys. They didn't just land there to collect soil and rocks or take historic photos. They also brought with them incredibly important scientific instruments, seismometers. These machines were like ultra-sensitive ears, placed directly on the surface to listen for every breath, every tiny movement emanating from deep within the planet. They worked tirelessly, sending a continuous stream of precious data back to Earth until 1977, when NASA decided to turn them off for budgetary reasons. During those 5 years of operation, these ears told us a completely different story about the moon, a world that was not at all silent, but, on the contrary, vibrating with intense energy. Based on the enormous amount of data collected, Scientists have classified these tremors into 4 different types, each carrying a unique message about the moon's composition and state. Quakes from the abyss. The first type we discovered are deep earthquakes, occurring at a depth of about 700 kilometers below the surface. This is an incredibly impressive figure when compared to typical earthquakes on our planet. The strangest thing is that their cause doesn't come from the moon itself, but from Earth. Imagine an invisible cord connecting our 2 worlds. That's the force of gravity. Just as the moon uses its pull to create tides in Earth's oceans, our planet exerts an enormous force on its companion. The constant pulling and relaxing due to Earth's gravity causes the moon's core to deform, creating fractures and triggering these deep quakes in a cyclical pattern. It's like a silent conversation between 2 celestial bodies through the pull of gravity. When temperature speaks, the second type of earthquake is called a thermal quake. These tremors are smaller but occur very frequently. They are the result of the extreme temperature changes between day and night on the moon. When dawn breaks, the sunlight begins to heat the surface after a long, cold, and icy night. The rigid rock masses expand with the heat and then abruptly contract from the cold when night falls. This change in state is so intense that the ground begins to crack. This image is reminiscent of accidentally pouring cold water into a skillet that's still scorching hot on the stove. The creaking sounds and small cracks that appear are how matter reacts to such a rapid change in temperature. Uninvited guests from space. The third type are tremors caused by meteoroid impacts. Unlike Earth, which has a thick atmosphere to burn up most rocks from space, the moon has no protective layer at all. Any piece of space rock, no matter how small, can hurtle in and slam directly into the surface at a terrifying speed. That powerful impact creates shock waves that propagate throughout the entire planet, causing it to ring like a giant bell that's just been struck hard. These quakes are a testament to the harshness of the cosmic environment that the moon has endured for billions of years. The mystery of the shallow quakes. Finally, and also the most worrisome type, are the shallow quakes. They occur at a depth of only about 20 to 30 kilometers below the surface, but possess the most tremendous power of all the types. What puzzles scientists the most is that we can't always clearly explain what causes them. Some of these quakes are related to global contraction and faults in the crust, but many others occur suddenly in completely quiet areas. These are the tremors that can last for over an hour, creating a violent shaking without any warning signs. Understanding this pulse has completely changed human plans for the future on the moon. We realize that the ground beneath our feet is not as stable as it appears. If we want to build long-term bases or laboratories, we can't just erect simple structures of glass and metal. Space architects will have to design structures capable of withstanding these long-lasting vibrational storms. Structures that are resilient and flexible, like ocean-faring ships. The moon is alive in a very special geological sense. It reacts to the Earth, to the sun, and to the cooling within its own core. The echoes from the past, recorded by the Apollo missions, remain the most crucial clues for us to decipher the language of these earthquakes, helping us understand more about the history and future of our closest neighbor. Each tremor is a message, a reminder that the universe is always in motion, in magical and surprising ways. As we delve deeper into the strange sounds emanating from the rocky heart of our nearest neighbor, we realize the moon doesn't just shake randomly. Instead, it possesses its own distinct rhythms, different geological notes that scientists have meticulously classified into 4 main types. Each of these quakes tells its own story about the moon's interaction with the vast cosmos and with our own planet Earth. Understanding these 4 types of seismic events not only helps us decode the satellite's history, but is also key to protecting the first human footsteps when we return in the future. The first type of quake and also the one that occurs deepest, is called a deep moonquake. These tremors originate at an incredible depth, about 700 kilometers beneath the dusty surface. Imagine a distant core, where pressure and darkness reign, suddenly disturbed by an invisible hand. That hand is none other than our Earth, in a way that is both poetic and physical. Just as the moon uses its gravity to pull the oceans and create tides, the Earth uses its immense gravity to stretch the moon. This interaction creates pressure on the moon's core, causing it to deform and fracture cyclically. This is a clear testament to how our two worlds are intimately bound by inseparable threads of gravity. Moving on to the second note, we encounter thermal quakes. While these tremors are not as powerful, they occur with great frequency and regularity. Their cause stems from the unbelievably extreme temperature changes on the lunar surface. After a long, cold lunar night, when the first rays of sunlight touch the rock, the temperature skyrockets. This sudden change causes the rock layers to expand with the heat, and then contract again as darkness falls. Imagine the ground like a hot pan being doused with cold water. The creaks and cracks that appear are how the moon reacts to the harshness of time and light. The third type on the list is vibrations caused by meteorite impacts. Because the moon has absolutely no atmosphere to protect it, it is always naked to the assault of objects from space. Any space rock, whether as small as a grain of sand or as large as a building, hurtles in and slams into the surface at a terrifying speed. Each powerful impact like this creates a violent shockwave that spreads across the planet. And because the moon's structure is very dry and rigid, these shockwaves aren't immediately dampened, but instead continue to echo, making the entire rocky sphere ring like a giant bell in the void. Finally, the most powerful and mysterious note is the shallow moonquake. These seismic events occur at a depth of only 20 to 30 kilometers below the surface, but they carry a frightening amount of energy. While other types of quakes can be explained by gravity or temperature, scientists still don't fully understand the cause of these shallow quakes. Some are clearly related to the moon's shrinking process and the movement of fault lines, but many others appear unexpectedly in areas that seem very stable. This is the type of quake that can last for more than an hour, with a magnitude of up to 5.5 on the Richter scale, enough to cause serious damage to any human-made structure. The presence of these four types of quakes has completely changed how we view the moon. It's no longer a silent, static object, but a place under constant stress, a rocky sphere being stretched, compressed, and bombarded from multiple directions. Each quake, whether silent at a depth of 700 kilometers or violent just beneath the surface, is a reminder that we are facing a dynamic world. If we want to build long-term bases, cities, or modern laboratories there in the future, we cannot ignore these vibrations. Any future construction will have to be designed to withstand prolonged vibrational storms, requiring durability and flexibility far beyond Earth's standards. We must learn to listen to the language of the rocks, understanding each type of seismic event to select the safest locations. The moon is telling us a story of a silent but never-ending geological evolution. It's a world that doesn't accept simplicity, where the only constant is ceaseless movement and change. These vibrational notes are the heartbeat of a celestial body that is alive in its own way, inviting us to explore even deeper mysteries beneath its dusty, cratered crust. The discovery of a constantly changing moon has posed an incredibly difficult problem for humanity's grand ambitions. For decades, we have nurtured the dream of returning to our neighbor, not just to take a few steps and leave, but to build long-term bases, sturdy homes, and modern laboratories for deep space exploration. Plans for missions like Artemis are being meticulously prepared to send humans to live and work in the moon's south polar region. However, the latest geological data has forced us to reevaluate everything with extreme seriousness. The ground we once believed to be solid and reliable is actually anything but stable. If you plan to build a base, a safe haven for astronauts, the last thing you want to do is place it right on top of one of the areas where the ground is shifting and contracting. It's like trying to build a house right over a crack that is continuously widening, ready to swallow everything. The giant wrinkles or fault scarps we've studied are not just relics of the past, they are evidence of a struggle of rock against itself, happening right now. One of the biggest challenges is the long duration of moonquakes. On Earth, even a powerful tremor usually ends after just a few short minutes. But on a dry, rigid world like the moon, where there is no water to act as a dampener, seismic energy ricochets throughout the planet's interior again and again. Imagine a structure having to endure violent, non-stop vibrational storms for a full 60 minutes. That's a terrifying test for any type of building material. Future lunar structures cannot be built according to the conventional standards we use down here. They will have to be designed to be both extremely strong and highly flexible. Instead of being fixed buildings, they might be more like ships, specially designed to weather an endless ocean of vibrations. Every joint, every frame, must be able to absorb and dissipate seismic energy as efficiently as possible to ensure the safety of the people inside. Furthermore, we need to accept the fact that the moon is not a static space fossil. It has its own internal dynamics, a form of geological metabolism that is slow but incredibly persistent and never stops. The moon is changing right before our eyes at a pace that human impatience sometimes struggles to handle. This continuous fracturing and shrinking process is the most practical geology lesson the universe has to offer us. Understanding these vibrations also gives us a more humble perspective on our own knowledge. Nature always has strange ways of reminding us that we don't know everything. For decades, we looked at photos and said they were just old cracks. But now, with technology that allows us to see microscopic details, we realize they are evidence of a geological drama that has not yet ended. The moon is grappling with the bone-chilling cold of space, losing its internal heat, and in the process, it is completely changing its appearance. What was once considered a simple satellite now appears before humanity as a living laboratory. It is a place that constantly vibrates and reacts, reminding us that in the vastness of space, the only constant is motion. Mapping every tremor, understanding the language of every quake, is absolutely vital before we lay the first brick on that gray surface. Every tremor, every millimeter of contraction is a message, a clue to the secret history and dynamic future of this neighbor. We are witnessing the evolution of a world, step by step, wrinkle by wrinkle, and as we prepare for our next steps on the moon, we bring not only courage, but also a deep understanding of a planet that is groaning and shifting under enormous pressures. It is a grand adventure, where humans must learn to live in harmony with the geological pulse of a world that never stands still. If the stories of the moon shrinking or experiencing hours-long moonquakes make you feel like you're in a science fiction movie, then what we're about to explore now will leave you even more bewildered. Because this phenomenon challenges the most basic chemistry rules we learned back in school. It's an unbelievable but true fact. Our moon is oxidizing, or to put it in simpler, everyday terms, it's rusting. Just think of that dull, reddish-brown layer you see on old nails left out in the garden, or on the bumpers of a car that hasn't been maintained for a long time. That's rust. In Earth's environment, seeing rust is completely normal. However, finding it on the moon is one of the most impossible things scientists have ever witnessed. According to conventional chemistry, to create the rust that scientists call hematite, you need 3 basic components at the same time: iron, water, and oxygen. The moon actually has a lot of iron in its rocks, so the first ingredient isn't a problem. However, the other two ingredients, oxygen and water, are a real puzzle. The moon should be a nearly perfect vacuum. It has absolutely no atmosphere with air for us to breathe. At the same time, water is also an extremely scarce resource that humanity has only just begun to find traces of. So, how on earth could that strange reddish color appear in such a barren and airless place? This mystery began to unfold when scientists took a closer look at data from an Indian space mission called Chandrayaan-1. As they analyzed the light reflected from the moon's polar regions, the unmistakable chemical signature of hematite suddenly appeared on their computer screens. At first, no one in the scientific community could believe their eyes. Many thought that perhaps the instruments had malfunctioned, or that the data had been misinterpreted in some way. Because, according to the most basic scientific logic, the moon should be the last place in the universe where you'd find rust. The existence of rust is not only hard to explain due to the lack of air and water, but also because of the sun's influence. You see, the sun doesn't just send us light and heat. It also constantly shoots out a powerful stream of charged particles that we call the solar wind. This solar wind is filled with hydrogen particles, and in the world of chemistry, hydrogen is the archenemy of rust. Chemically speaking, hydrogen is a reducing agent, meaning it tends to strip oxygen from other materials, doing the complete opposite of oxidation. So, even if by some miracle a little bit of rust happened to appear on the moon, the solar wind would quickly come along and destroy it immediately. And yet, reality shows that hematite is still there, casually covering many parts of the moon's surface as if nothing were wrong. The discovery of a rusting moon has completely changed the game and the way we see our celestial neighbor. It tells us that the moon is capable of much more powerful chemical reactions than humans ever imagined. It's not just a passive, lifeless rock, but a celestial body that interacts strongly with its environment, holding onto particles from other worlds and transforming its own surface through incredibly complex chemical processes. This also opens up a stunning clue in our search for life or habitable conditions on other planets in the universe. If we can understand how a world with absolutely no atmosphere can become oxidized, perhaps we'll find traces of water or other important gases on other moons or asteroids that we previously thought were dead. The image of a moon gradually turning red is a mesmerizing one. Of course, it's not the vibrant red of Mars, but it is a distinct shade, a signal that something is quietly happening up there. It forces us to think of the moon not as a completely separate object, but as an extension of Earth itself, suffering the consequences and impacts of being so close to a dynamic planet like ours. This paradox is a precious reminder that in the vastness of space, there are no truly clear boundaries. Everything is connected by magnetic fields, solar winds, and streams of particles moving silently through the vacuum. The moon does not accept simplicity, and every time we believe we've figured it out, it presents something new that leaves us in awe. We already know it's shrinking, constantly trembling, and now it's rusting. But the biggest question remains. If there's no oxygen on the moon, where is the oxygen that creates the rust coming from? And how could water appear to complete this process? Those answers will lead us to a connection that is both poetic and scientific between the Earth and the moon, where our planet is the indirect culprit creating that reddish-brown coat. The mystery of the reddish-brown rust on an airless body like the moon has led us from one surprise to another. If, in the last chapter, we were still bewildered, asking ourselves where oxygen could come from in a perfect vacuum, now the answer will reveal an intimate and poetic link between our blue planet and its faithful companion above. It turns out the culprit causing the moon to oxidize is none other than our own dear planet Earth. Try to imagine. Our Earth isn't just a solitary sphere in the universe. It's surrounded by a powerful magnetic field which acts like a suit of armor, protecting us from the sun's harsh radiation. Under the force of the powerful solar winds, this magnetic field doesn't remain a perfect sphere, but is stretched out behind us, creating a structure that looks like a long cloak blowing in the wind or the brilliant tail of a comet. Scientists call this structure by a very descriptive name, the magnetotail. It is this giant magnetic tail that serves as an invisible bridge between our two worlds. Once a month, during the full moon that we often gaze at, the moon quietly passes through that very magnetotail of Earth, and at that exact moment, two miraculous things happen simultaneously, becoming the key to unlocking the entire mystery of the rust. The first thing is, when nestled within Earth's magnetotail, the moon is sheltered by our planet from the bombardment of the solar wind. This magnetic tail acts as a temporary shield, blocking the stream of hydrogen particles from our central star. As we already know, hydrogen is the enemy of the oxidation process. Thanks to this protection, for a few days each month, the moon gets a chemical break, allowing the rust-forming reactions to occur without being immediately destroyed by hydrogen. But Earth doesn't just protect its friend by blocking its enemy. The craziest and most fascinating part is that our planet is actually breathing on its companion. It has been discovered that a small amount of oxygen from the highest layers of Earth's atmosphere is quietly traveling through that long magnetic tail. It's like it's traveling on an invisible highway in space to finally land on the surface of the moon. Literally, the moon is using Earth's own oxygen to rust its own surface. Our planet is breathing on its companion from thousands of kilometers away, leaving clear chemical traces over millions of years. This is an incredibly intimate connection, where the existence of an atmosphere and life on Earth has directly impacted and changed the face of the celestial body nearest to us. This fact also helps explain why hematite, or rust, is found mainly on the side of the moon that always faces Earth. This is the side that receives the most oxygen breath from us, strongly reinforcing the hypothesis that Earth is the cause of this strange phenomenon. The moon suddenly becomes a large mirror, not only reflecting gentle light into the dark night, but also reacting vividly to the very existence of our atmosphere. However, even after finding the source of oxygen, we are still missing one final piece to complete this chemical picture, and that is water. Because oxygen alone cannot create such distinct layers of rust without the help of moisture, and the secret of those rare water droplets is hidden in tiny dust particles and the permanently shadowed regions at the moon's two poles. Now, take a deep breath in and exhale slowly. Feel the cool air around you, and remember that this very breath is also crossing the vastness of space to touch the moon, creating those muted red hues on the gray rock. The universe is truly magical, connecting everything with invisible threads that we are only just beginning to understand. The story of the chemical symbiosis between a planet teeming with life and a barren satellite is a wonderful testament to the unity of nature. We are not separate from outer space. We are interacting with it every second, every minute. We have journeyed a long way together to understand the silent tremors and the breath of oxygen that the Earth has sent to the moon over millions of years. However, just as a master chef needs many ingredients to create a complete dish, the process of oxidation, or the creation of rust on the moon, also needs one final, crucial piece, and that is water. You might wonder, in a place as arid and harsh as the moon, where the sun's rays can scorch everything, where does the water come from to complete this strange chemical recipe? The answer lies within tiny dust particles and a very special cosmic cooking process. To understand this, let's first talk about the layer of dust that covers the entire lunar surface, which scientists call the regolith. This isn't the soft dust you find in your room, but rather fragments of rock, glass, and minerals crushed by meteorite impacts over billions of years. Within this grayish, seemingly lifeless dust, iron is abundant, ready for any chemical reaction. However, iron can only turn into rust when it encounters both oxygen and water at the same time. As we know, oxygen is borrowed from Earth's atmosphere through its magnetic tail during each full moon. So where is water, the third ingredient in this recipe, hiding? Scientists believe the key lies in the moon's two poles, where deep craters never see the light of the sunday. These are lands of eternal darkness, where the temperature is so low that water can exist as ice for billions of years without evaporating. But how can this ice, lying dormant in the dark, combine with iron and oxygen in sunlit areas to create rust? The answer lies with uninvited guests from space, micrometeorites. Every day, millions of tiny space rocks, like grains of sand, hurtle straight into the moon at incredible speeds. With no atmosphere to slow them down, they crash directly into the surface dust. Each tiny impact generates an immense, instantaneous burst of heat, enough to melt rock and dust in the blink of an eye. This very heat releases water molecules trapped deep within the soil, or from tiny ice particles scattered in the dust. That fleeting, tiny bit of moisture immediately mixes with the iron readily available in the rock and the oxygen that is seeping over from Earth. And just like that, the recipe was complete. A spontaneous chemical reaction takes place amidst the heat of micrometeorite impacts, creating rust stains, also known as hematite, on the moon's surface. This is an incredibly slow process, happening one atom at a time. But when accumulated over billions of years, it has created distinct chemical traces that probes like Chandrayaan-1 can detect from orbit. Another amazing fact that reinforces this theory is the location of the rust stains. Scientists noticed that the rust appears mainly on the side of the moon that always faces Earth. This makes perfect sense, as that is the area that receives the most oxygen breath from our planet through the magnetotail. It's as if the moon is holding out one of its faces to receive chemical gifts from its companion. However, the universe always finds ways to astonish us even more. While most of the rust is on the near side, a small amount of hematite has also been found on the far side of the moon, where oxygen from Earth can hardly reach. This raises a big question. Could the moon have been hiding a small amount of water and oxygen within itself since its formation? Or perhaps there is another mysterious chemical process capable of creating rust without needing an atmosphere? This discovery is not just an interesting fact for a textbook. It has truly been a complete game changer in the field of space exploration. It shows us that the moon is more chemically reactive and interactive with its environment than we thought. If an airless world like the moon can rust, then who knows? We might find traces of water or other important gases on other moons or asteroids that we previously considered to be dead. The image of the moon gradually turning reddish-brown is a reminder that we are not alone in the solar system. All celestial bodies are connected through streams of particles, magnetic fields, and even chance collisions. The moon is not just a silent, shining satellite. It is a floating chemical history archive right above our heads. By analyzing these layers of rust, future scientists may be able to decipher the story of how Earth's atmosphere evolved, and even learn when plants first appeared to change our planet's atmospheric composition. In short, the moon is a world that does not accept simplicity. It uses dust, water from dark craters, oxygen from Earth, and heat from meteorites to write a colorful chemical love song. The wrinkles from its shrinking, the seismic echoes, and now the reddish-brown rust stains are all telling us about a celestial body full of life and mystery. Each new discovery is like another piece being fitted into a giant puzzle, making us love and admire our wonderful neighbor even more. The story of the changes on the moon's surface has taken us from the wrinkles of contraction to the paradoxical reddish-brown rust. But if you think what we can see on the outside is the strangest part, then prepare to go deep beneath the rock and soil to the South Pole region of the Moon. There, an even greater mystery is hidden, a structure so massive and heavy that it is distorting the very gravity map of our neighbor. This isn't a story about water molecules or tiny dust particles, but about an object on such a massive scale that no one is sure where it came from or what it is truly hiding beneath the already harsh surface. Imagine you're walking through a vast desert, and suddenly you realize that beneath the fine sand isn't just ordinary rock, but a colossal metal structure like a majestic mountain range. That's exactly what scientists found beneath the South Pole Aitken Basin on the Moon. To understand the scale of this discovery, we need to know that the Aitken Basin is the largest, deepest, and oldest impact crater on the entire Moon. It's a gigantic scar about 2,500 kilometers wide. If you place this crater on Earth, it would cover almost the entire distance from Mexico City all the way to New York City. What really has researchers on the edge of their seats is not the size of the crater itself, but what lies deep beneath its floor. This secret was revealed thanks to a very special NASA mission called GRAIL. This mission consisted of 2 twin probes orbiting the Moon to measure changes in its gravitational force with incredible precision. As these spacecraft flew over the Aitken Basin region, scientists noticed a stronger than normal pull acting on them. It was as if the Moon was hiding a giant magnet or an extremely heavy, leaden heart inside, pulling the probes closer. At first, experts just thought it was a normal variation in rock density in the area, but when they performed meticulous calculations, they were absolutely stunned by the results. What lies beneath the basin is a dense mass of material extending to a depth of about 300 kilometers. To give you a more concrete picture, imagine a block of metal, 5 times the mass of the beautiful Big Island of Hawaii, all concentrated into a single mass and sunk deep into the Moon's mantle. This mass weighs 4 million billion kilograms. A million billion is a number with so many zeros that our minds can barely write it down or fully comprehend its immensity. This metallic mass is so heavy that it has directly pushed down the floor of the basin, deforming the physical structure of the satellite itself. This is an anomaly that shouldn't exist, or at least shouldn't be concentrated in such a massive and dense form. So, where did such a metallic monster come from? This is where the theories take us on a journey back in time to the most violent days of the solar system. The most widely supported explanation among scientists is that about 4 billion years ago, a giant asteroid, a true chunk of iron and nickel, collided head-on with the Moon. But it wasn't an ordinary impact that created vaporized debris or was ejected into space. This impact occurred at a very specific speed that caused the metallic core of that asteroid to become embedded deep within the Moon. Imagine an object the size of a small planet piercing through the crust and getting stuck there like a bullet lodged deep in a tree trunk. Over time, as the Moon cooled, its surface healed, and that metallic corpse was buried forever, becoming an inseparable part of this satellite. However, there's another theory that's just as compelling. Some scientists believe that enormous mass of material didn't come from outer space, but was a result of the Moon's own formation process. They theorize that in its early days, when the Moon was still a molten ocean of magma, certain very heavy metal oxides concentrated and sank deep beneath the surface as the magma cooled. However, based on the specific shape and location of this anomaly, the theory of a giant asteroid impact still receives more support. Whatever its true origin may be, the presence of this enormous metal structure has completely changed our image of the Moon. It's no longer just the simple, gray, rocky sphere we see through our windows each night. Instead, it holds within it the remnants of brutal cosmic battles from billions of years ago. That metal mass is a silent witness to an era when the solar system was a chaotic shooting gallery, where worlds collided to determine their own existence. The South Pole Aitken Basin is essentially an ancient crime scene, and this gravity anomaly is the weapon left behind under the moon's dusty carpet. This discovery isn't just an interesting fact for textbooks. It plays a vital role in humanity's plans to return to the moon. NASA's Artemis missions are targeting the South Pole to build the first bases because it holds a precious source of water in the form of ice. However, we now know that we are preparing to land in a region with extremely chaotic gravity. The massive underground metal structure could affect everything, from the orbits of spacecraft to the long-term stability of the ground where we lay our first foundation stones. Wanting to build a city or a way station here is like trying to build a house on top of a giant iron deposit that has never been excavated. We need to fully understand what we're dealing with before taking the next critical steps. What's most astonishing is that this mass, weighing quadrillions of kilograms, has been there for billions of years, hiding in plain sight without anyone knowing. Humans have gazed at the moon since the dawn of our species, created countless myths and poems about it, and even walked upon its surface. And yet, we had absolutely no idea about the heavy secret lying deep beneath that gray soil. This is a reminder that the universe is always a master at hiding enormous things right under our noses. The Aitken Basin anomaly shows that the moon's internal structure is far more complex than we ever imagined. It is not a uniform mass, but a puzzle made of strange materials and remnants of geological processes that we are only just beginning to map. Every time we send a new probe or analyze data with more powerful computers, it's as if the moon is telling us that humanity has yet to see its true secrets. And indeed, if a massive chunk of metal astonished us, then what's happening with water on the moon's surface in the next chapter will shatter every law of logic we once took for granted. The story of the giant metal mass hidden beneath the South Pole takes us back to a distant era, when the solar system was still a chaotic place and terrifying collisions were commonplace. It's hard to imagine that beneath the quiet, gray dust we see each night lies the scene of a cosmic crime of unimaginable scale. That enormous mass, weighing up to 4 quadrillion kilograms, is not just a gravitational anomaly, but a silent witness, holding the memories of brutal wars between celestial bodies from billions of years ago. To solve this mystery, we need to travel back in time about 4 billion years. At that time, the moon was still young, and the solar system was like a giant shooting gallery, where asteroids and planetesimals frequently collided to determine their existence. The theory most favored by scientists is that of a cataclysmic impact. A giant asteroid, a true mass of iron and nickel, slammed directly into the moon with terrifying force. However, this was no ordinary impact that would cause the object to explode or completely vaporize. Instead, the asteroid approached at a very specific speed and angle. Rather than being ejected back into space, its heavy metallic core became lodged deep within the moon, piercing through the rocky crust and getting stuck there forever. Imagine an object the size of a small planet penetrating the surface and staying there, like a bullet lodged deep in the trunk of an ancient tree. Over time, as the moon cooled, its surface gradually healed, covering that metal bullet with a layer of rock and dust hundreds of kilometers thick, turning it into a permanently buried secret. It is the metallic corpse of this ancient invader that created the Aitken Basin, the largest and deepest scar on our satellite. With a width of up to 2,500 kilometers, this crater is so colossal that if you placed it on Earth, it would stretch from Mexico City all the way to New York City. The immense weight of the metal mass below, estimated to be 5 times the area of the big island of Hawaii, has continuously pulled the basin floor downward, distorting the very geological structure of the moon. The existence of this mass was only brought to light thanks to the tireless efforts of modern science. NASA's mission, named Grail, with its twin orbiting probes, measured the slightest changes in gravitational pull. As they flew over the South Pole region, the spacecraft were pulled more strongly than usual by an invisible force from below. Subsequent calculations stunned researchers when they realized the scale of this dense mass, which extends to a depth of about 300 kilometers beneath the surface. Although the asteroid impact theory is widely supported, there exists another explanation in the scientific community that is no less intriguing. Some experts suggest that this metal mass did not come from outer space, but is a result of the moon's own cooling process. They argue that, in its infancy, when the moon was a molten ocean of magma, very heavy metal oxides gradually concentrated and sank to the bottom as the magma began to solidify. However, considering the concentrated shape and specific location of this gravitational anomaly, the vast majority of scientists still lean toward the theory of a historic impact. Whatever its true origin, this quadrillion-kilogram mass of metal has made the Aitken Basin an incredibly important location for the future of humanity. Our upcoming Artemis missions are targeting this South Pole region to land and build our first base. The main reason is because it holds a precious source of water in the form of ice. But now, we must face a new challenge: landing and operating equipment on terrain. With such chaotic gravity and complex internal structure, building a way station here is like trying to establish a city on top of a giant, unmined iron deposit. We need to understand exactly what lies beneath our feet before laying the first bricks. It's astonishing to think that this enormous mass has been lying there for billions of years, right under our noses, without anyone knowing. Humans have gazed at the moon since the dawn of our species, woven countless legends, and even set foot on it. And yet, we were once completely in the dark about this heavy secret. The anomaly at the South Pole Basin is a powerful reminder that the moon is not an onion with simple, uniform layers. It is a complex puzzle, pieced together from strange materials, the remnants of asteroids, and geological processes that we are only just beginning to map. Every time we send a new spacecraft or analyze data with better computers, the moon reveals another piece of its true nature. And as if to prove that its mysteries are endless, the moon doesn't just astound us with buried masses of metal right on its sun-scorched surface, where according to all conventional laws of chemistry, water cannot exist. We find water molecules dancing about as if to defy all logic. The contrast between a heavy metal mass below and dancing water molecules above is proof of a moon that is dynamic, complex, and full of wonders far beyond our imagination. For decades, when talking about a place of absolute dryness in the universe, our default answer was always the moon. We were once certain that this neighbor was drier than any harsh desert on Earth, from the scorching Sahara to the frigid Atacama Plateau. It was a place where water simply had no chance to exist, and that made perfect sense according to every law of physics known to man. With no atmosphere to protect it, the moon faces the endless vacuum of space and the brutal punishment of the sun's rays head-on. During a long lunar day, the temperature can soar to 127 degrees Celsius, a heat intense enough to cause any trace of moisture to instantly evaporate and disappear forever into space. However, the moon once again proved that it always likes to go against our conventional wisdom. All preconceptions of a waterless world were completely changed thanks to a very special mission named Sophia. Imagine a highly modernized Boeing 747 carrying a giant telescope protruding from its fuselage, gliding above the highest clouds to avoid the interference of water vapor in Earth's atmosphere. This telescope was aimed directly at the moon, specifically at the Clavius crater, one of the giant impact craters that we can clearly see from down here with just a regular pair of binoculars. And what Sophia found left NASA absolutely stunned. they discovered the unmistakable chemical signature of actual water molecules in an area of the moon that was fully illuminated by the sunday. This wasn't some other similar compound, but pure water, the same kind you and I use every day. A huge question was immediately raised. How could water just casually exist there at a temperature of 127 degrees Celsius without evaporating? To solve this mystery, scientists came up with some incredibly ingenious theories. One of the ways water chose to hide was by getting inside microscopic glass beads. As we know, the moon is constantly bombarded by millions of micrometeorites moving at terrifying speeds. When these tiny space rocks hit the surface, they generate so much heat that they melt the rock dust and turn it into glass in an instant. In that process, a small amount of water becomes tightly sealed inside these tiny glass marbles. They act like microscopic time capsules, protecting the water from the scorching heat and the harshness of the cosmic vacuum. But the magic didn't stop there. It turns out that water on the moon doesn't just stay in one place. It's on a fascinating journey. Scientists observed that these water molecules seem to be dancing on the gray surface. In the morning, as sunlight begins to warm the surface, water molecules detach from the dust and start to float. Since there's no atmosphere to hold them in, they bounce across the ground and land in other areas that are still colder or in the shade of large rocks. It's a very special water cycle, with no clouds, no rain, just a molecular game of hide and seek for water to escape the sun's heat. So where does this precious water come from? Some of it was brought by comets, giant snowballs that crashed into the moon and left their ice behind. However, another part is created by the moon itself, with help from the sunday. The solar wind, filled with hydrogen proton particles, constantly bombards the moon's surface. When these hydrogen particles hit the rock dust, they chemically interact with the oxygen atoms already present in the soil. A spontaneous chemical formula took place. Hydrogen from the sun combined with oxygen from the moon to create water. It's a slow process, one atom at a time, but it has been persistently happening for billions of years. The discovery of water on the sunlit surface has completely changed the future of space exploration. This means that future astronauts can access this resource much more easily than anticipated. Water not only sustains life, but is also an invaluable source of fuel. If we can separate the hydrogen and oxygen from water, we'll have enough fuel to fill the tanks of rocket ships and continue our journey to explore the deeper solar system. Then, the moon will no longer be just a destination, but will become a true cosmic gas station in the heart of space. The presence of water has erased the image of a dead and barren rock. Now, we see a dynamic world where complex chemical reactions take place and molecules dance to the rhythm of temperature. It's a magnificent symbiosis between a star and a satellite that humanity is only just beginning to understand. Every speck of dust under the boots of future astronauts could be hiding invisible treasures right before their eyes. This discovery is also a slap in the face to human scientific arrogance, reminding us that nature always knows how to surprise us, even in the most extreme conditions. The moon, far from being a boring desert, turns out to have a water mechanism that leaves all of us dumbfounded. And while we were busy with these microscopic water molecules, the moon was sending other brilliant signals from its surface, hinting at mysterious phenomena that can sometimes be seen with the naked eye. The whole story of the moon, silently shrinking like a raisin, earthquakes lasting for hours that make the ground shake like jelly, or the reddish-brown rust created by Earth's own oxygen breath, is enough to astound any of us. However, on our gray neighbor, there exists another phenomenon that is even more elusive, more mysterious, and for many old-school scientists, it's a real headache with no complete solution. These are the transient lunar phenomena, or, as they're known in the astronomy community, by the acronym LTP. Basically, These phenomena are unusual lights, instantaneous flashes, sudden color changes, or mysterious mists that appear and then disappear on the moon's surface in just a few seconds or a few short minutes. They are not permanent, leave no clear trace after they vanish, and the most frustrating thing for observers is that they are completely unpredictable. It's as if the moon occasionally decides to turn on a flashlight or spout a strange puff of gas, just to remind humanity that we really don't know a thing about what's truly happening up there. The craziest part is that this is not some new discovery from the modern space age. We have priceless records from amateur and professional astronomers dating back hundreds of years. Try to imagine a monk in the 11th century, or a scientist in the 17th century, peering through his crude telescope, and suddenly they see a crater that should be dark to begin to glow brightly with a red light, or a large area suddenly blurs as if an invisible cloud of smoke is obscuring it. For a long time, the mainstream scientific community was skeptical and even mocked these reports. They claimed they were just optical illusions caused by dirty telescopes, observer fatigue, or simply light distortions caused by Earth's atmosphere. However, the number of testimonies was overwhelming, and many of them came from highly skilled and perceptive observers. Even the brave astronauts of the Apollo missions reported similar strange things when they were very close to the moon. During the historic Apollo 11 mission, as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin were preparing for their landing, they reported seeing a strange glow on the wall of the Aristarchus crater. It's fascinating to know that Aristarchus is the #1 hotspot for these transient phenomena. It's a super bright crater and seems to have its own internal activity that no one has been able to fully explain to this day. When people orbiting the moon directly confirmed seeing the light, blaming it on telescope errors on Earth was no longer convincing. So, what's really causing these ghostly flashes? This is where scientific theories begin to emerge and contradict one another. One of the most plausible explanations is closely related to the geological process we've discussed: gases escaping from within the ground. Imagine one of the moonquakes suddenly opening a small crack on the surface. Gases that have been trapped deep within the rock for millions of years, like radon or helium, would shoot out into the vacuum of space. This stream of gas could kick up fine dust or even glow on its own under the influence of sunlight, creating the appearance of a momentary mist or a fleeting flash before vanishing into nothingness. Another theory that's gaining a lot of support involves static electricity. The moon doesn't have a global magnetic field like Earth, but its surface is very susceptible to electrical charge from the constant bombardment of the solar wind. As dawn breaks and sunlight starts to hit the gray dust, the tiny dust particles become strongly charged with static and begin to repel each other violently. Scientists believe this creates actual dust fountains that levitate above the surface. If you were looking from a distance and a cloud of dust suddenly floated up and reflected sunlight, what you'd see would be a flash or a bright spot appearing out of nowhere. It's as if the moon has its own electrical storms, but with absolutely no clouds and no rain, just charged dust particles dancing all over the place. On top of that, we can't ignore the issue of impacts from space. As we know, the moon is constantly bombarded by space rocks because it has no protective atmosphere. Most of them are micrometeorites as small as grains of sand, but traveling at incredible speeds. When they strike the hard rock on the moon, the immense energy of the impact instantly turns into light, creating a momentary flash. However, meteor impacts can only explain flashes that last for a second, not the glows that last for several minutes, or the color changes that occur over a considerable period. This is where the theory of the piezoelectric effect comes in. This idea suggests that when crystals or layers of rock are compressed with an extremely large force, much like how the moon is shrinking and under tremendous internal pressure, they generate an electric current. It's similar to the mechanism in your kitchen lighter. which creates a spark when you press the button. Therefore, the very structure of the moon might be shooting out actual electrical sparks on its surface due to undergoing so much geological stress. The truth is, these LTPs are a perfect reminder that human observation of the moon is still very superficial and one-sided. We usually only see it from too great a distance or have only set foot in specific locations for very short periods. We currently don't have a dense network of cameras covering every inch of the surface, monitoring it continuously 24 hours a day. Therefore, these lights remain like ghosts that appear when no one is expecting them. The most interesting thing is that even though we have modern satellites in orbit, the best data on this phenomenon still comes from dedicated amateur astronomers who spend long nights glued to their telescopes. Thanks to this global network, we now know that the flashes don't happen randomly everywhere, but are mainly concentrated at the edges of the lunar marea, the dark regions that are ancient lava plains. This provides a huge clue. The flashes often appear where the crust is thinner or where there are more geological fault lines. In other words, the mysterious lights and moonquakes are closely related, all part of the same complex, active system that humanity is only just beginning to decipher. Each flash is a question, a message that our neighbor is throwing at us, as if to say, "Look closer, you still don't truly understand me yet." To perfectly conclude our journey into the moon's oddities, we must talk about something we can all see, but almost no one stops to really question. It's a secret, hidden in plain sight, a truth about our neighbor's appearance that has been concealed for billions of years. Our moon actually has two faces, and the strangest thing is that they look nothing alike. If you took a picture of the side we see every night and placed it next to a picture of the hidden side, you would think they were two completely different worlds with nothing in common. It's such a staggering asymmetry that it took scientists decades to try and understand what on earth was going on with such an uneven design. The side that faces us, the near side, is the face humanity has been familiar with for millennia. It has giant, dark patches that we often call the lunar seas, but which are actually vast, flat, and relatively smooth ancient lava plains. However, the hidden side, the one we can never see from Earth because the moon is tidally locked to always show us one face, is completely different. It appears like a geological nightmare of rugged mountains, with craters piled upon craters, and almost no dark patches or lava plains. It's as if the moon is a body with a completely split personality, one side gentle and flat, the other wild and violent. The mystery of this difference has been puzzling the scientific community since 1959, when the Soviet Union's Luna 3 probe first flew around to the back and sent back the first images of the far side. At the time, scientists expected to see images similar to the near side, with more seas and more lava plains. But what they found was a landscape that looked like a cratered and scarred battlefield, without any trace of the dark plains that dominate the side we always see. That moment left everyone stunned, asking the question, why did one side decide to fill itself with lava, while the other decided to retain its appearance as a pockmarked, mountainous shell? The answer, like every other mystery on the moon, begins with a story of violence, heat, and an incredibly intense relationship with the early Earth. To understand this difference, we have to go back billions of years to when the moon had just formed from a colossal collision between Earth and another Mars-sized planet. After that terrifying impact, the moon was very close to us, much closer than it is today. At that time, Earth wasn't the cool blue marble it is now, but a seething ball of lava, radiating an immense amount of heat into space. Because the moon became tidally locked early on, it always kept the same face towards that blazing Earth. Imagine the near side of the moon being permanently stuck next to a giant space heater with a temperature of thousands of degrees Celsius, while the far side faced the cold, dark void of space. The extreme heat radiating from the young Earth kept the near side of the moon in a molten, hotter state for much longer than the other side. Conversely, the far side, not being subjected to Earth's heat, cooled down rapidly. Because it cooled sooner, the crust of the far side became much thicker and more rigid than the near sides. This difference in crustal thickness is the crux of the issue. Later, when asteroids began to rain down on the moon, on the near side, the fragile crust was easily punctured by the impacts. This allowed hot magma from deep within to well up, filling the impact craters and creating the flat, dark seas we see today. But on the far side, the crust was so thick and durable that no matter how hard it was struck by asteroids, magma could almost never escape to the surface to pave over or flatten the terrain. Thus, the far side remains forever, covered in empty mountains and craters. However, the story doesn't end there. There's another, crazier sounding, but very plausible theory that scientists call the giant impact hypothesis. Some researchers believe that Earth didn't initially have just one moon, but two. After the impact that formed the main satellite, another smaller moon, perhaps only a third of the size, was also created. For a few million years, these two lunar siblings shared an orbit, as if playing a game of cosmic chase. But eventually, gravity took its course, causing the smaller moon to collide with the larger one. This collision wasn't explosive like in the movies, but happened at a low speed, almost as if the smaller moon splattered itself onto the far side of the larger one. Instead of creating a giant impact crater, the entire mass of the smaller moon spread out across the surface, adding a layer of rock tens of kilometers thick to the far side. This perfectly explains why the crust on the far side is abnormally thick compared to the side we see. It's as if the moon used its own smaller sibling as an extra shield or protective layer. This asymmetry affects everything, from how mass is distributed and how gravity behaves to the distribution of heat-producing radioactive elements inside. The fact that the near side has a thinner crust and contains more heat-producing elements allowed it to sustain volcanic activity for longer, creating the familiar dark spots. In contrast, the far side is like a frozen archive of the early solar system, perfectly preserving every impact without being erased by lava flows. It's strange to think that for the entire length of human history, we only knew half the story of our companion. We looked up and believed the entire satellite was just like what our eyes saw, until space probes helped us realize its wildest and most rugged face. Today, the far side is becoming a new goldmine for science, because it's completely shielded from all radio interference from Earth. It's the perfect place to put telescopes that can observe the very edge of the universe without obstruction. The first steps of probes like China's Chang'e 4 have proven that its treacherous terrain is not unconquerable. The moon's asymmetry is the final piece of the puzzle for us to understand that our satellite is an incredibly complex object with a turbulent history. It is not as simple or quiet as its gray exterior suggests. Now, whenever you look up at the night sky, remember that behind that familiar face lies a whole world of towering mountains and deep craters, the result of a dance between heat and gravity that lasted for millions of years. The moon wears its history written on its very crust, and to read the full story, we had to learn how to look behind the curtain. We have traveled together through 15 chapters of a wondrous journey, from the moon shrinking like a raisin, to moonquakes that last for hours, to the rust from Earth's own breath, and the quadrillion-kilometer mass of metal buried deep within its core. All of these things confirm one thing: something truly strange, complex, and magnificent is happening right above our heads. Every time we believe we've figured out the moon, it presents us with a new mystery, compelling us to continue exploring and admiring the grandeur of the cosmos. The journey of space exploration will always be the greatest adventure, where even the most familiar celestial bodies can leave us utterly astonished. And so, our journey through the fascinating mysteries of the moon tonight is slowly coming to an end. You see, our closest celestial neighbor isn't as silent or lifeless as we've long imagined. Through the stories we've shared, I hope you can now picture a completely new moon, a living entity, quietly shrinking in on itself like a raisin to hold on to its last bit of warmth. Let your mind relax completely and remember those incredible images. Remember the moonquakes that last for hours on end, causing the entire rocky sphere to vibrate like a crystal bell in the void. Remember the colossal metallic mass, weighing 4 quadrillion kilograms, lying deep beneath the surface, carrying with it memories of cataclysmic collisions from the dawn of the solar system. And think of the tiny water molecules dancing on the illuminated surface, fleeing the sun's scorching heat, awaiting the footsteps of future human explorers. Now, just let all that knowledge gently settle, like the fine dust covering distant impact craters. You don't need to think, you don't need to worry or remember anything else. Just feel your own breath, slow and steady, just as the Earth silently sends its breath of oxygen across the vastness of space to reach out and rust the moon's surface. Allow the peace of the universe to spread and envelop your entire being. The moon is still there, silently watching over your sleep, the fault cliffs, the seismic echoes, the mysterious transient flashes of light. They are now just a sweet lullaby, carrying you away from the complexities of your waking life and into the world of soaring dreams. There, you can wander freely across ancient lava plains or gaze at the brilliant Milky Way from the far side of the moon, where the absolute silence will bring the deepest peace to your soul. May you have a deep and peaceful sleep. Let the stars guide your way, and let the gentle moonlight soothe you through the long night. When you wake up tomorrow morning, you will find yourself filled with energy, like a moon awakening from a billion-year slumber. Sleep well, my friend, until we meet again on our next journey with Knowledge Before Sleep, where we will unravel more wonders of the vast universe together.